there's no way Columbus is done, right? So what we've all looked at and what we've all obsessed on is that Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky are gone. And it's not just that they're gone, it's that they didn't get anything back. Now, I don't have Matt Duchene on the board, and I don't have Ryan Dzingel because they were rentals at the deadline. And I'm not going to talk about the prospects / draft picks they gave up to get those guys because at the end of the day, we're only looking at the roster that got to the playoffs, which I think would have probably got there without Duchene and Dzingel anyways, and not discussing what they gave up because that's not important for this coming season. Later on, yes, those draft picks come back to haunt you. Vanek and Johnson are gone from the 2017-2018 roster. So I'm looking back, not to this season we just had, but the year before, where they did make the playoffs as well. Vanek, of course, was a player they picked up from Vancouver as a rental. And Jack Johnson went off and signed in Pittsburgh. And you could argue, looking at this blue line, they don't really miss Jack Johnson. So what they miss is Bobrovsky and Panarin. Now, the loss of Panarin, and I know people are going to say, but you got to talk about Duchene and Dzingel. Not really. If you look at the totals they put up in Columbus, you don't. The playoffs, not worried about the playoffs. I'm talking about whether or not Columbus is still a playoff team, whether or not they can get back there with what they have. So you look at their top six. You got Nyquist, Dubois, Atkinson, Foligno, Jenner, Anderson. It's a challenge. It is a challenge for this team to do it. However, if you look down the middle, Dubois, Jenner, Wenberg, and Nash. Wenberg, I think they've been trying to move. Nash hasn't really produced for Columbus the way he did in Boston the year before. But they're not bad down the middle. And Jenner's still young enough that he can get some of that scoring going the way that it looked like he would early on in his career. Nyquist played very well for San Jose after the trade from Detroit. He will not make up for Panarin, but it means it's not a complete loss. Atkinson had a solid season, so did Anderson. Atkinson saying he had a solid season, probably a little bit of an understatement. And Dubois, I think, is still coming into his own. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois is a legit first-line center. And so I like their top six. I think they're okay. Bottom six, Bjorkstrand, who could end up being in that top six. Wenberg, Hannakainen. Texier is a wild card as a rookie. Looked really, really solid for them when he did play. Riley Nash, as mentioned before, didn't have a great offensive season, but had some good defensive moments and threw some memorable hits as well in the playoffs. Emil Bemstrom, who was signed as a free agent, and Bemstrom likely to get a spot in the lineup. Now, if Bemstrom ends up being a huge steal of a signing, that'll help make up for the loss of Panarin as well. And at this time next year, we're talking about just how smart Columbus was. And Jacob Lilia, or Jakob Lilia, whichever. I'll go with Jacob Lilia. Could end up being a potential steal of a signing as well. So their offensive depth has taken a hit without Panarin. I'm not going to lie. But they're still good enough that I don't foresee them tanking. And here's the thing. This blue line is fantastic. Zach Werenski, who's currently in RFA, Seth Jones, Ryan Murray, David Savard. That is a fantastic top four. And when Murray gets hurt, and he tends to do that, Scott Harrington steps in, and he's pretty decent. Marcus Nudavara, Dean Kukan can step in as a top six when Murray gets hurt, and Adam Clendenning still there as a 7/8 as well on the blue line. It's goaltending where I look and I go, they're not done. Korpisalo and a rookie, they're not done. Now, I'm well aware that management in Columbus has stated we are perfectly comfortable with this setup in net going forward. They have $15 million in cap space. Some of that's going to get eaten up by Zach Werenski, who's a restricted free agent. But if you're looking for a spot where a goaltender's going to land, and I'm looking at you, Jake Allen, Columbus very well may be the spot. I don't think that they necessarily are in the market for anything on the blue line. I think they're fine there. I think adding a goaltender and I think one more forward is still something they're looking at. I would not be surprised to see them circle back on Dzingel or Dzingel circle back to Columbus. Now that I've said that, he'll sign somewhere else today because that's how things work. But with $15 million in cap, they could afford to sign Werenski, bring in Jake Allen, and perhaps add somebody else. As long as you have cap space, there's hope. And again, losing Bobrovsky is huge. Losing Panarin is huge. I cannot minimize that and say, well, they're definitely a playoff team. But when I look at them overall, I don't think it's as bad as is being made out by some in the media. Panarin and Bobrovsky combined make about $22 million, $22 million. That's too much money to me, anyways, personally. And it would have taken them over the cap if they'd kept him, and they'd be looking at downgrading somewhere else. So I'm just throwing that out there. Although, if you keep Panarin, you don't bring in Nyquist in all likelihood. It's not all rosy. Could they fall back? Yes. Is it likely? I don't think so. I really don't. I think that as long as you got John Tortorella behind the bench, and as long as you've got a defense that's this solid, you've got a chance. But I do think there's going to be an upgrade in net. I think Elvis, he's going to end up being the number 3 guy. I do. And I know they're both 25 years of age, but you look, Korpisalo's making $1.15 million and Elvis is making $874K. That's a combined cap hit of $2 million between both goalies. Oh, it's great for your salary cap situation, but I don't know that I would go with either of them as the starter. Korpisalo in 90 games in the NHL has a record of 41, 31, and 9, and a save percentage of .907. He had a save percentage of .897 this past season. Again, I haven't seen anything from Jonas over the last, I'll say, year and a half that tells me, yes, he should be the starting goaltender moving forward once Bobrovsky's gone. I really think if they can find a goaltender, and I'm only using Allen as an example, there are likely others around the league who might be available for the right price. I think Korpisalo could end up as the backup again, and we end up with a starter. But I don't think Columbus is done. So if you're a Blue Jackets fan, do you get the feeling that this is kind of how things are going to look? I didn't include some of the other prospects as well because they don't project as being ready this fall. Doesn't mean they won't be. It just means they don't project to be ready this fall. Let me know, though, if you think somebody else is going to push onto this roster. Maybe a first-rounder from last year, a center, push his way in here to move things out. Does Wenberg eventually get moved? Is that ever going to happen, or does Wenberg continue to sit there? And is he going to be a healthy scratch for Tortorella again in the fall? It's going to be a very interesting season in Columbus. Let me know your thoughts regarding that. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.